Hey everybody, this is Brian Nazarel Newman. I'm on my lunch break at my job. I had a dream last night that I felt I should share really strongly for some reason, and I'm starting a dream interpretation ministry, so maybe it's important. It's a good teaching lesson, at least. There are certain dreams called deliverance dreams that are we show when you're being healed of something, when you're being pulled out of something, when you're being rescued for something. So this dream last night was one of 7 or 8 dreams I probably had. And the past month or so, all my dreams have been at night. It's always been dark, which is a time of uncertainty. But this is in daylight. And it seemed like it was in the morning. It seems like in the morning, like around dawn. And it's also this log cabin I grew up in. And it's not like a nice log cabin. This place probably should have been condemned. We didn't have water sometimes. We didn't have power sometimes. The only heat we had was electric heat. The only heat we had was not electric heat. We had a couple electric heaters, like small ones, and we had a big fireplace. Terribly cold in the winter, and it was just an awful experience. But it took place in the cabin I grew up in, which shows this dream relates to something that happened in my childhood or throughout my life, or an ongoing thing since childhood. And it's in the morning or the evening. In the morning is usually a transition, and evening's also a transition. So in this dream, me and 2 people I've worked with before are, one's a nurse, one's a social worker, and we're all out in the backyard. There are these big, giant holes in the ground. Not like a hole like a sinkhole, but like you go to a graveyard, there's like a rectangular hole where something's going to be buried. It's a perfectly smooth rectangular hole, and these giant, giant dinosaur-sized snakes were dead. The snakes were dead, but they were in these holes. They were dead, and they're already in the ground, but they hadn't been buried yet. So we had to pile this dirt. You had to take the shovel and pile the dirt on to completely bury it. And snake means deception. So all these like lies you believed your whole life, or lies you've been told your whole life, or lies you've been around your whole life, the more they get fed, the bigger they get. Especially reptiles grow until they die. So we got dinosaurs, but they grow until they die. So these lies and deceptions I've been told or been around have been growing and growing and growing and growing through the years, and they got to be huge. And one hole in the ground is this like a constrictor. It's like brown and black. It might have been python, and python's a Greek word for a certain kind of spirit. And one's a copperhead, so one's a constrictor. And this is something that over time, over a period of years, first it wraps around you, squeezes the life out of you, squeezes the ruach or the pneuma or the spirit out of you, squeezes the spirit out of you over time, and then it breaks your bones and it swallows you. And it does it slowly over time. That's one kind of deception that can work in your life or come against you, is that something over time it just wears you down. You can't fight it. It wears you down, then you can't breathe. Then there's no spirit left in you, then it takes you away. And then there's one like a copperhead or a cobra. Another snake was a copperhead with a huge head. It reaches out and it latches onto you, and it injects the poison in you, where what is fighting against you is inside you at that point. So if you're facing something like a kind of deception that's a constrictor, it will just over time and over the years, it will just put pressure and pressure and pressure. You get too tired to fight, and it just squeezes the spirit out of you. And that's one kind of thing you can face. And other kinds, like a copperhead or like a venomous snake, it's just a real quick thing. It comes out of nowhere and it latches on. It injects this thought or idea inside you that's not right, and then it goes away. But both of these snakes were dead. There's multiple little pits in the ground, and my two people I worked with, they were burying some too. And these 2 people have been really helpful to me in processing a lot of stuff I've been through the past year or 2. So I guess they were assisting me in doing the burial. But these snakes were buried. They were dead, and they were buried. And this big python one, I mean, it's like a couple of feet thick. I mean, it's just huge. It's probably 2 feet thick, or 2 or 3 feet thick. It's huge. Bigger than that. But the python, the one that wears you down over the years, that you don't have the strength to fight. Because constrictor gets you, you fight it first, but you don't have the strength to fight it for very long. When you don't have the strength to fight it, there is no way out of that except to be rescued. But the python had died by someone crushing his head. And like in Genesis, his head got crushed. And it was too big for a human being to have crushed its head. It's a divine, supernatural sized foot that had to come down and crush its head. So the dream was showing me, this deliverance dream, that this python, this thing that has squeezed the life out of me all these years, wore me down, and then it began to squeeze the spirit out of me all these years, was crushed. Like God came in and crushed its head and threw it to the ground. I mean, threw it in the pit, threw it in the ground. And then, like in Revelation, the serpent gets thrown in the pit. And then the copperhead, the venomous one, I don't know how he died, but he was just dead. He's just there dead, but his head is bigger than my whole body. He's dead. A lot of venom there, but it's dead. And so it was like my job at this point just to bury it, just to throw the dirt in it and bury it. And there was a lot more to that dream later, but I just felt led to give you this example of a deliverance dream. And there's snakes mean deception. Snakes have long tails, they mean deception. But some deceptions you kind of encounter in your childhood, and they wrap around you so you can't fight anymore. Then when you can't fight anymore, that's when they squeeze the breath or the pneuma or the ruach or the spirit out of you. They squeeze it out of you, and you can't do anything about that over time. It's a much more powerful for you to fight off. So God himself has to come down and intervene with that one. And there's certain snakes, certain serpents, certain lies. You can kill yourself. If they're small, you can kill that deception or that false thought or that stronghold or whatever. You can kill that. You can knock that out right when it comes at you. But if you keep feeding it for years and years and years and years, then it gets to the point it's too big for you to fight anymore. So God has to come in and do it. But these things, he can kill them, but unless we bury them, they're going to raise a stink. And it looked like these have been recently killed, but they had to be buried, because if they weren't buried, they would raise a perpetual stink. So when God kills something like that in your life, you have to come in and you have to bury it too. You have to, he'll do the killing of the deception, but you have to come in and you have to be the one to bury it. So I hope that helps you guys. But take away from dreams: dawn and evening are transitional times, transitional points in your life. If you're to childhood home, that's usually something you've been dealing with for years. And serpents are lies. There's two kinds of serpents. There's constrictors, which wear you down over time, over a long period of time, and then they break your bones, and they squeeze the life out of you, squeeze the spirit out of you so you can't fight back. And then there's venomous ones that come in really quickly and leave really quickly. They just kind of leave their mark and go. And if you feed something, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you can't handle it anymore. God has to intervene. And then some things, if they're dead, you have to bury them. If something's dead, you don't hold on to it, you bury it. It's an unclean thing, you have to bury it. And it's usually your job to bury it. He might do the slaying of it, but you have to do the burying of it. And there's some more things about that dream, about compassion wearing me down, and some other things. But I just want to share that snake part real quick, and I'll probably start doing more of these. I have dreams. My first Facebook Live, so I'm crazy nervous. And my website will be up and running at the end of the week probably. So I will get that to you guys, but it's going to be an instructional dream interpretation, and you have means to reach out to me to help with interpretation. And then if someone, and I can start doing some little mini shows, my friend Brooke, my media director. So if we're going to start doing like some Facebook Live dream interpretations. So I hope that helps you guys. Shalom to your hearts, and I love all of you. Bye. Don't know how to turn my camera off.